Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. Are you out of your mind? The voice slices through the ballroom like broken glass. Under the chandeliers, those heavy crystals that make even rich laughter sound expensive, everything stops on a single frame. A black maid's fist extended, a woman in a white dress recoiling, and a man in a black suit standing to the side with his arms folded like he's watching a trial. The maid's name, at least the name stitched onto her uniform, reads Nia. But the woman inside the uniform is Imani Caldwell, 41, and she has spent her entire life learning the difference between noise and power. The woman in the white dress is Yuna Choi, 38. No crown, no title, no office, yet the room reacts to her like she owns the building. People say her temper is the kind that ruins careers. People say she's engaged to a Korean man whose smile never reaches his eyes. That man stands there now, Junsook Park, 43. Black suit. Clean cufflinks. A faint tattoo crawling up his neck like ink that never learned its place. He doesn't move to help Yuna. He doesn't move to punish Imani. He just watches. Because men like Junsook don't flinch at violence. They flinch at unpredictability. And Imani, standing in a maid's uniform in the middle of a luxury ballroom, has become the only unpredictable thing in the room. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Imani Caldwell. The punch wasn't the beginning. It was the moment the lies stopped fitting. Minutes earlier, Imani had been doing what she was hired to do, glide along the perimeter with a tray of champagne, smile softly, keep her eyes lowered, the choreography of invisibility that service workers learn without ever being taught. The ballroom belonged to the Aurelia Crown Hotel, a Manhattan landmark that hosted people who liked their wealth quiet and their control loud. Tonight's event was a private engagement celebration. Invitation only, the signage said, like money couldn't still leak into a room. Yuna Choi moved through the crowd like a knife through silk. People stepped aside. Staff froze when she passed. Not because she was famous. Because she was feared. Imani had seen fear before. In boardrooms. In depositions. In hospital corridors at 2 a.m. when a doctor won't meet your eyes. This fear was different. This fear wore diamonds. It started with a server, an older woman, at least 35, hands trembling as she adjusted a centerpiece. Yuna drifted close, examined the arrangement like it offended her, then flicked her wrist. A glass toppled. Champagne spilled across the linen and onto the woman's shoes. The server flinched, whispered an apology, reached for napkins. Yuna leaned in, smiling. "Do you people rehearse being incompetent?" she said, loud enough for the nearby guests to hear, "or does it come natural?" The guests laughed. Not because it was funny. Because laughing is how people prove they're on the right side. Imani felt something tighten behind her ribs. Not rage. Not yet. Recognition. She moved forward, not rushing, just arriving, like a professional. "Ma'am," Imani said gently, "I can replace the cloth and reset the table in 2 minutes." Yuna's gaze slid over Imani's face, her hair pulled back, her simple gold cross necklace resting at her throat. Then Yuna's eyes dropped to the apron. And in that glance, Imani became a category. Not a person. A thing. You're speaking to me? Yuna asked, as if the sound itself was offensive. Imani kept her voice even. I'm offering to fix it. Yuna tilted her head. Fix it. Right. Because that's what you do. You clean other people's messes and pretend you're proud. Imani's fingers tightened around the tray, but her shoulders stayed relaxed. She had learned long ago that composure is a weapon people underestimate until it cuts them. Yuna's friend, a woman in a red gown, whispered something and smirked. Imani caught fragments. Staff, these people, always. Then Yuna reached out and plucked a champagne flute off Imani's tray like she was taking something from a shelf. She didn't sip it. She poured it. Cold champagne cascaded down Imani's collar, soaking into her uniform, dripping along her skin like an insult you can't wipe off fast enough. The room made a sound, half gasp, half hunger. Imani stared at the bubbles sliding down her apron. The server beside her whispered, "Please, just let it go." That was the trap. The old one. The familiar one. Let it go, so it can happen again. Let it go, so they learn you're safe to disrespect. Imani lifted her eyes to Yuna. "Ma'am," she said, still calm, "you can't do that." Yuna laughed. "Can't?" Then she leaned in, her voice dropping, poison sweet. "Watch me." And that's when Yuna reached for Imani's necklace, fingers closing around the chain as if she meant to yank it off like a trophy. Pain flashed at Imani's throat. Instinct moved faster than thought. Imani's left hand trapped Yuna's wrist, firm, controlled, not violent, just decisive. Yuna's eyes widened, shocked that the maid had hands strong enough to stop her. Then Yuna snapped. She swung. A slap aimed at Imani's face, fast, spiteful, meant to humiliate. Imani shifted her weight, turned with the motion, and her right hand came up. One strike. Not wild. Not messy. A clean, controlled punch that landed because Yuna kept coming. Yuna's head snapped to the side. Her hair flew. Her mouth opened in a sound that wasn't pain as much as disbelief. The ballroom froze. For one heartbeat, the world held its breath. Then chaos tried to break loose. "Security," someone shouted. "Call the police." She assaulted her. Phones rose like a field of black mirrors. Junsuk Park didn't move. He only adjusted his gaze, slow, deliberate, until it met Imani's. It was the first time anyone important in that room looked at her like she might matter. And Imani, champagne-soaked, throat-stinging, cross-necklace askew, did not look away. The hotel's GM, Charles Whitman, pushed through the crowd with a face polished into panic. "What happened?" he demanded, though he'd clearly already chosen an answer. Yuna clutched her cheek, tears suddenly ready on command. "She attacked me. That woman attacked me." Whitman's eyes flicked to the apron, then to Yuna's white dress, then to Junsuk. His spine made a decision without consulting his conscience. "Take her," Whitman said, pointing at Imani. "Take her to the back. Now." Two security guards stepped forward, big men, practiced hands, the kind who treat problems like furniture to be moved. Imani didn't fight them. She didn't twist away. She didn't plead. She lifted her chin and spoke quietly to Elena Vargas, the head of security, who had arrived a half step behind them. "Preserve the footage," Imani said. "All angles. And document the chain of custody." Elena blinked. "Excuse me?" Imani's voice didn't rise. It didn't shake. Preserve the footage. Something in the way she said it, like a person used to being obeyed, made Elena hesitate. Whitman snapped, "Elena, do your job." Elena looked between the GM and the maid. Then she did something Whitman didn't expect. She listened. "Bring her to the staff office," Elena said, but her tone shifted, less punishment, more procedure. No hands on her neck. And nobody deletes anything. Whitman's jaw tightened. "Elena." Elena didn't look at him. "Policy." Yuna scoffed loudly. "Policy? You care about policy now? My fiancé will buy this hotel twice." Junsuk finally spoke, soft enough that the words felt like a blade sliding out of a sheath. "Yuna," he said, not a warning, an instruction. She fell silent, furious. Imani allowed herself one breath. Not relief. Timing. As she was escorted through a service corridor lined with gold-framed mirrors, the sounds of the ballroom faded into a muffled roar like the ocean behind a wall. The staff office smelled like lemon cleaner and burnt coffee. A place built to hold invisible people. Elena closed the door. The guards hovered. Whitman arrived seconds later, flanked by two event coordinators whose smiles looked stapled on. He tossed a clipboard onto the table. "Name," he said. "Agency. ID." Imani reached into her pocket slowly and produced a temporary staffing badge, photo, barcode, and the name printed in bold. Whitman barely glanced. "Nia Rivers," he read aloud, satisfied. "Fine. Nia Rivers, you are terminated effective immediately. We will be pressing charges for assaulting a guest." Yuna's voice carried from the hallway. She was close, pacing like a shark. "Press charges. Make an example." Imani watched Whitman like he was a man walking toward the edge of a cliff with his eyes closed. "Mr. Whitman," she said, "you should be careful what you document as fact." He scoffed. "You assaulted her." Imani's throat still stung where Yuna had grabbed her necklace. "She grabbed me first," Imani said. "And it's on camera." Whitman leaned forward. "We can make cameras complicated." He glanced at one of the event coordinators and murmured, "Go to the security desk. Pull the last 30 minutes, and don't let a copy leave this floor." Elena's eyes sharpened. Imani turned slightly toward Elena. "You know that's a felony, right? Evidence tampering." Whitman's face hardened. "Who do you think you are?" Imani didn't answer with a speech. She answered with action. She reached into her pocket again and pulled out her phone. "One call. One ring." "Renee," she said when the line picked up, "it's Imani. We have an incident. Aurelia Crown. Ballroom level. Preserve all footage. I need you here in 20 minutes with the acquisition file." Whitman froze. Elena froze. Even the guards stopped breathing like guards. Whitman swallowed. "Who did you just call?" Imani looked at him, expression steady. "My general counsel." Whitman's laugh came out wrong, like it tripped on itself. "You're..." Imani ended the call and placed the phone on the table. Then finally, she offered him the truth in one clean line. "You just detained the majority owner of this hotel." The silence that followed was so heavy it felt physical. Whitman's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Yuna pushed into the doorway at that moment, cheeks flushed, eyes bright with venom. "What is taking so long?" she demanded. Then she saw Imani sitting calmly. "Why is she still here? Put her in cuffs." Whitman found his voice again, shaky. "Ma'am, we're handling it." Yuna's gaze snapped to Elena. "You. Do something." Elena's tone was careful. "We're reviewing footage." Yuna laughed, sharp, humiliating. "Footage. Like footage will matter." Then her eyes narrowed at Imani. "You think because you hit me you have power? You're staff. You're nothing." Imani let the insult pass like wind against stone. Because she wasn't waiting to be respected. She was waiting for the system to click into place. 20 minutes later, the elevator doors opened on the service floor. A woman stepped out in a navy suit with a folder tucked under her arm like it was an extension of her spine. Renee Bishop, 47. Calm eyes. Shoes quiet enough to sound expensive. She walked into the staff office without hesitation, glanced once at Imani's soaked uniform, then at Whitman. "Charles," Renee said politely, "I'm going to need you to sit down." Whitman stood too fast. "Renee, we had an incident." Renee placed the folder on the table and opened it with the care of a surgeon. "On March 7th, she said, Caldwell Hospitality Holdings acquired a controlling interest in the Aurelia Crown. Today, effective 6 p.m., operational authority transferred. Ms. Caldwell instructed an undercover service audit for guest behavior, staff safety, and security compliance." Whitman's face drained. This is insane." Renee looked up. "No. What's insane is you ordering staff to delete recordings." Elena's eyes flicked to Whitman. A muscle in her jaw tightened, like she'd just made a decision. From the hallway, Yuna's voice cut through again. "If you don't remove that maid, I will have all of you fired." Renee stood, opened the door, and stepped into the corridor. Yuna was there, white dress immaculate except for the faint smear of makeup near her cheek. Junsuk Park stood behind her, still, arms folded, as if the hallway was his private throne room. His eyes landed on Renee, then on Imani behind her. Something shifted in his gaze, interest, calculation. Renee's smile was professional. "Miss Choi, I'm Renee Bishop, legal counsel for Caldwell Hospitality." Yuna's brow furrowed. "I don't care who you are." Renee nodded. "That's fine. But you should care who she is." Renee stepped aside. Imani walked forward. Not in a rush. Not dramatic. Just forward. Champagne still clung to her collar. The cross necklace still rested at her throat. Her expression was calm enough to make people uncomfortable. Junsuk's arms slowly lowered. He looked her up and down once, apron, uniform, the quiet strength in her posture. Then his eyes narrowed slightly, like he recognized the shape of power even when it wore the wrong costume. Yuna scoffed. "You brought her out so I can see her fired? Good." Imani didn't answer Yuna. She addressed Whitman, who had followed them into the hall with panic sweating through his confidence. "Bring the incident log," Imani said. "And pull the last 12 months of staff complaints tied to VIP events." Whitman stammered, "That's confidential." "It's mine," Imani replied. Renee's voice followed, soft but lethal. "And if any record is missing, the auditors will assume it was destroyed intentionally." Yuna's eyes widened just a fraction. "Auditors?" Imani finally turned to Yuna. The air felt colder. Ms. Choi, Imani said, you assaulted a staff member, attempted to remove personal property from her body, and then lied about it in front of multiple witnesses. That's not fear. That's entitlement. Yuna's face twisted. You're still staff. You're still beneath. Imani lifted one hand, not to silence her, but to signal Elena. Elena nodded and spoke into her radio. Post security at the exits, she said. Preserve all guest footage submissions. And politely ask anyone who witnessed it to remain available for statements until NYPD arrives. Yuna stepped forward, furious. You can't lock me down. Imani's voice stayed low. Watch me. That line, simple, controlled, hit harder than the punch. Jun-suk took a step closer, finally choosing to speak. This is becoming public, he said, tone smooth. It doesn't have to. We can handle this privately. Imani met his eyes. No, she said. We handle it properly. For the first time, Jun-suk's expression tightened. Not anger. Respect mixed with caution. Because he understood properly meant paperwork, cameras, police reports, the kind of things money can't always erase once they exist. Back in the ballroom, the energy had changed. Guests clustered in tight circles, whispering into hands, filming discreetly. Yuna marched in like she still owned the oxygen, but now she was followed by security not as protection as containment. Whitman tried to take the microphone near the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, voice trembling into a practiced smile, we're experiencing a... Renee stepped in front of him and gently lowered the mic. No speeches, she said. Not tonight. Imani walked onto the ballroom floor. The same place where the punch had frozen time. Now time moved again, slow, heavy, inevitable. She looked at the staff lined along the wall, servers, cleaners, bartenders, all older than 35, all wearing the tired posture of people who know the room will never be on their side. Imani's gaze softened. Then she turned back to Yuna. Yuna's friends were still there, but their smiles had thinned. Fear was changing direction. Police arrived 15 minutes later, 2 officers, then 4, moving with that calm efficiency that says they've seen rich people try to rewrite reality before. Officer Daniels, late 40s, asked, "Who's the complainant?" Yuna raised her hand like a queen. "I am. I was attacked." Officer Daniels looked at her cheek, then at Imani's soaked collar and reddened throat. "And you?" he asked Imani. Imani answered evenly. "I was grabbed. My property was pulled. I defended myself. It's on video." Yuna laughed. "Video can be edited." Elena stepped forward. "We have internal security footage with timestamps and backups." Renee added, "And we're preserving chain of custody." Officer Daniels nodded, already writing. Yuna's smile faltered. Because she could feel it, the moment when the world stops bending for you. Whitman attempted to intervene, voice slick. "Officers, perhaps we can." Officer Daniels held up a hand. "Sir, stop talking." It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Yuna's eyes darted to Jun-suk like a child looking for rescue. Jun-suk's face remained unreadable. But his silence was not support. It was evaluation. The officers asked for statements. Guests offered half-truths until phones began buzzing, clips already spreading. A woman in a green dress showed her screen, Yuna pouring champagne on Imani, Yuna grabbing the necklace, Yuna swinging first. The room watched Yuna's power evaporate in real time. Yuna lunged toward the phone holder, screaming, "Delete that." Officer Daniels stepped between them. "Ma'am," he said, "back up." Yuna's hand rose fast, impulsive, aimed at Imani again, like habit. Elena caught her wrist midair. "Not rough. Just final." "Don't," Elena said. Yuna's face contorted. "Get your hands off me." Officer Daniels exhaled, then nodded to his partner. "Ma'am," he said, "turn around." Yuna blinked, genuinely confused. "Excuse me?" Officer Daniels' tone didn't change. "Turn around." "What are you doing?" Yuna shrieked. "Do you know who I am?" Officer Daniels looked at her like he'd heard that line 1,000 times. "I know what you did," he said. Yuna's wrists were cuffed. The click of metal echoed under the chandeliers. The crowd fell silent, not because they respected Yuna, but because they understood they were witnessing something rare. A consequence that couldn't be bought back. Whitman's hands trembled. "This is a misunderstanding." Renee turned to him. "Charles, you are now suspended pending investigation for policy violations and possible evidence tampering." Whitman's mouth dropped open. "You can't." Imani stepped closer, voice calm. "I can." Whitman's eyes flicked to the guests, desperate for allies. But the guests were already distancing themselves. Because no one wants to be close to a sinking ship when cameras are rolling. Junsuk approached Imani, stopping at a respectful distance. Up close, he smelled faintly of cedar and expensive restraint. "You wore that uniform on purpose," he said quietly. Imani didn't deny it. "Yes." He studied her throat. The red mark where the necklace had been yanked. "That was risky," he said. Imani's eyes stayed steady. "So is letting people think they can touch you without consequence." A flicker of approval crossed his face, then vanished. Yuna screamed from the corridor as she was escorted out, her voice fading down the hall like a storm passing. The ballroom stayed silent after she left. People didn't clap. This wasn't entertainment. It was correction. Imani turned to the staff again. She didn't give them a motivational speech. She gave them structure. "Elena," Imani said, "I want every staff member involved tonight to be offered paid leave if they need it. Counseling resources. And I want written assurance, no retaliation." Elena nodded immediately. "Yes, ma'am." Imani looked at Renee. "And I want the complaint backlog." Renee answered, already pulling it. Whitman stood off to the side, small now, eyes darting. Imani didn't insult him. She didn't raise her voice. She simply said, "Your job relied on staff silence. That ends tonight." Junsuk's gaze sharpened. "You're going to tear the place apart." Imani met him. "I'm going to rebuild it." For a moment, Junsuk looked like he might smile. He didn't. Instead he leaned in slightly, voice low enough that only Imani could hear. "Fear is a currency," he said. "You just crashed the market." Imani's reply was quiet. "Good." That answer landed between them like a contract. Over the next 48 hours, the Aurelia crown changed faster than it ever had under Whitman. Not with banners. With documents. Renee's team interviewed staff, documented patterns, and found what Whitman thought was buried, incident reports that ended mid-sentence, camera logs with maintenance noted at convenient times, NDAs drafted like gag orders. Elena produced a private backup drive, footage Whitman didn't know existed because Elena didn't trust Whitman. On the video, the truth was merciless. Yuna pouring champagne. Yuna grabbing the necklace. Yuna swinging first. Imani's controlled defense. Whitman ordering deletions. The evidence didn't just clear Imani. It indicted the culture. And cultures, once exposed, don't survive sunlight. Media picked up the story, but the headline wasn't what Imani expected. Not Maid punches socialite. It was, hotel owner goes undercover VIP assault caught on camera. The first time Imani saw her own face online next to the word owner, she felt something heavy settle in her chest. Not pride. Responsibility. Because now staff would be watched. Guests would be watched. Every move would be interpreted. Power always comes with a spotlight. And for a black woman, the spotlight rarely feels neutral. Imani scheduled a meeting in a smaller room off the main lobby, no chandeliers, no stage, no audience. Just chairs in a circle. Staff filed in, cautious, older faces worn by years of being told they were replaceable. Imani wore a tailored charcoal suit now, hair styled neatly, posture unchanged. Some of them didn't recognize her at first. Then they did. Whispers moved through the room like wind. That's her. That's the maid. That's the owner? Imani waited until everyone sat. Then she spoke. I'm not here to apologize for defending myself, she said. A few staff members nodded, tight-lipped. I'm here to apologize for what this building has allowed, she continued. That ends. A man in his 50s raised a hand. We've heard that before. Imani didn't flinch. You're right, she said. Words are cheap. She slid folders across the table. Inside, wage adjustments, policy changes, a hotline managed externally, written anti-retaliation clauses, and a union neutrality agreement. The room went quiet, not the nervous quiet from fear. A different quiet. The kind that comes when people realize something real is happening. An older bartender, early 60s, voice rough, asked, "Why'd you come in as a maid?" Imani's eyes softened. Because I needed to see what you see, she said. Not what executives tell me you see. A woman near the back whispered, they never listen to us. Imani nodded once. I'm listening now. Outside, the legal machine moved forward. Yuna was charged. The footage made sure of it. Junsook's name surfaced in articles, always with careful phrasing, businessman, mobile, rumored ties, but rumors have gravity when they appear next to police reports. Junsook requested a private meeting with Imani 3 days after the incident. He chose a quiet lounge on the hotel's top floor. No entourage. Just him. Imani arrived with Renee, because wisdom isn't paranoia, it's planning. Junsook stood when she entered, a small gesture that carried weight. You handled it clean, he said. Imani took a seat, unhurried. Clean is the only way it holds. He studied her. Yuna embarrassed me. Imani's expression didn't change. Yuna assaulted staff. A pause. Junsook exhaled lightly. Yes. For the first time, his mask slipped not into vulnerability, but into something like honesty. She thought fear would protect her, he said. It protected her until it didn't. Imani held his gaze. And what did you think would protect you? That question landed. Jun-suk's eyes narrowed, the corner of his mouth tightening. Renee opened a thin folder and slid it across the table. Due diligence, Renee said. Your investment vehicle is connected to entities we can't partner with. Jun-suk didn't open the folder. He didn't need to. He understood what it meant. Someone had looked under the polished surface. Imani's voice stayed calm. This hotel will not be a stage for intimidation. And my company will not be a laundering mat for anyone's money. Jun-suk's gaze hardened. You're telling me no? Imani nodded once. I'm telling you, you don't get to buy this. Silence thickened. Then Jun-suk did something unexpected. He laughed, quiet, controlled, almost appreciative. You know, he said, most people try to impress me. Imani's reply was simple. I'm not most people. He leaned back, eyes on her like he was memorizing the shape of resistance. What do you want? He asked. Imani didn't hesitate. A safe workplace. An accountable leadership structure. And a written agreement that your people won't use my property for your business. Jun-suk's eyes flicked to Renee. And if I refuse? Renee's voice was polite. Then we stop cooperating with your narrative. Jun-suk's gaze returned to Imani. He held it for a long moment. Then he nodded slightly. Fine, he said. But understand something. Imani waited. Jun-suk's voice dropped. You made enemies tonight. Imani's expression stayed steady. I've had enemies since the day I walked into my first boardroom, she said. Tonight I just stopped pretending I didn't. Jun-suk's eyes softened by a fraction. He stood. Miss Caldwell, he said, formal now, your backbone is expensive. Imani stood too. Good. I can afford it. He left without shaking hands, but he didn't threaten her again. Not because he became kind. Because he recognized boundaries drawn in ink and enforced by systems. Weeks passed. The Aurelia Crown implemented changes that staff had begged for years. Whitman was terminated after the investigation confirmed misconduct and attempted evidence interference. Elena was promoted to Director of Security Compliance across all properties. Staff received raises, protections, and something rarer than benefits. Credibility. Yuna's social circle scattered. Her engagement, once the center of the night, became a footnote in a larger story, one that didn't revolve around her. Imani returned to the ballroom a month later. Same chandeliers. Same marble floor. Different air. A charity gala was being held, this time with strict behavior policies printed on every table card, not as decoration, but as warning. Imani wore a black gown with clean lines, understated jewelry, hair styled with intention. She walked through the room and people stepped aside, not from fear, but from recognition. Some smiled too widely, eager to align with the new power. Imani didn't reward that. She greeted staff first. A server approached her, eyes bright. Ms. Caldwell. The kitchen says thank you. Imani nodded. No, she said softly. Thank you for staying when you shouldn't have had to. Across the room, a man lifted his phone, recording. Imani didn't mind. Let them record. Let them see what calm authority looks like on black skin in a room that once only respected it in uniforms. Renee joined her with a quiet update. Yuna accepted a plea deal, she said. Community service. Anger management. Restitution to the staff fund. Imani exhaled slowly. Good. Renee's eyes searched her face. You okay? Imani's gaze drifted upward to the chandeliers. People think justice is loud, Imani said. But most of the time, it's paperwork and boundaries. Renee smiled. And one punch. Imani's mouth tightened, almost a smile, almost not. One defense, she corrected. And one sentence. Renee nodded, understanding. Imani looked across the ballroom where a new GM, careful, respectful, was greeting guests with staff at his side, not behind him. The building felt different. Not perfect. But honest. Imani's phone buzzed. A notification from a news outlet, Korean logistics firm under federal scrutiny after NYC hotel incident. Imani stared at it for a moment. So that was the final truth. The story was never only about Yuna's fear. It was about a system that had been feeding on silence. And silence, once broken, keeps echoing. Imani slipped her phone back into her clutch. She didn't need to announce anything. She didn't need to prove anything. She walked out of the ballroom the same way she'd walked in as Nia. Head high. Back straight. Dignity intact. And behind her, under chandeliers that once watched people get away with anything, the room finally learned a new rule. Power doesn't always enter wearing a crown. Sometimes it enters wearing an apron. And when it speaks once, everything changes.